It's Tuesday, June 28th, 2016, and it's time for WorthPoint Chats with Harry Rinker. I'm Greg Watkins, the editor at WorthPoint, and let's say hello to Harry. Hello,
Hey,
Harry.
Greg, how are you?
I'm good.
Well,
how are you?
every time I think the antiques and collectibles market is in the process of recovering, or every time I think my stocks are in the process of recovering, some idiot somewhere overseas does something dumb. And this has been a week for some of the dumbest.
Yeah? Is this where you're going to hold forth?
Yes, I think we need to talk about what does Brexit mean to the antiques and collectibles industry. I mean, I'm the guru in the trade. I'm supposed to know all about this stuff. And you know, this is a situation that has big ramifications for the antiques and collectibles industry. Okay, first of all, people are not going to spend money when things are uncertain, and clearly nobody knows what the heck the consequences are going to be. The stock market took almost 1,000 points of hits, although it's recovering somewhat today. But the point of the matter is that it appears that Britain going isolationist is going to have problems. The EU doesn't know what's going on. And so what happens now with all of this? Well, historically, back in the 1980s and 1990s, there was an interesting relationship between stock market and price in the trade. When the stock market sunk, people would often take money out of the stock market and invest it in what we call tangible assets like antiques, but like gold and silver and the rest of that type of stuff. And that in the 1990s, when the recession of the 1980s hit, when the 1980s recession hit, interestingly enough, the stock market didn't drop. It went up. And so it completely threw every former theory off balance. Now, what does this mean in terms of this? Clearly, the dollar is now cheaper against the euro and the pound. And I'm about ready to leave for Canada on Thursday, which, by the way, means that we're not going to be doing the show next Tuesday. We're going to be doing the next WorthPoint chat with Harry Rinker next Thursday. Not next Tuesday, but next Thursday at 2 o'clock. We're going to do it live. That's when we're going to be. Always check my website, harryrinker.com, to see when the chat's scheduled for, because over the next 3 weeks I'm on the road a lot, so we're going to be maneuvering around. We'll be back on schedule by the end of July and through August and September. But anyway, going back to all of this. Okay, so all of a sudden the dollar's cheaper against the dollar is stronger against the euro. It's certainly stronger against the pound. So of course everybody says, well, it's a great time to travel abroad. And boy, am I thinking of going abroad, take advantage of all of this. In fact, Lynn and I talked about, can we sneak a quick trip into England somewhere? But what's going to happen is that when the dollar was really weak against the other currencies, American collectors came out of the market, and the English were not able to sell as much over here. But now that it's cheaper, don't rush over to England and buy antiques and collectibles. I mean, that would be stupid. And the reason for that is that they may be cheaper, but the question is, does anybody in America want them any longer? Clearly, one of the revolutions in the 21st century is that things that were perceived as having high ranges of value, English ceramics is a great example, historically do not have the same pizzazz and emphasis with younger collectors today. And so, yes, you can rush over there and buy English furniture and container loads of stuff and bring it over here, but you better be able to buy it and sell it to the decorative market, not into the collector market, because the collector market has changed considerably. Now, has this had any impact on WorthPoint? I mean, what are you hearing in WorthPoint or seeing in WorthPoint on this?
It's really too soon for us to see anything as far as changes in values. We're looking at doing some articles about it, but like you said, it's way too early to know how anything's going to really finally shake out. There's the drop in the value of the pound right now, but we're watching right now to see how things shake out after a couple of weeks, and then we'll look at it at that point.
Well, Greg, you know, this is also another point to make here in this chat as well. Yeah, I remember when collecting was a regional market. You know, we talked about values in New England, Mid-Atlantic states, Southern states, Southwest states, Midwest, you know, the Plain states and that type of thing. And there were, and there still to some degree are, strong regional values. And then we start talking about national value. particularly for objects that were marketed nationally, like Barbie and some of the other memorabilia from the 50s and the 60s. And once you got the big box stores in that were national, like Walmart and Kmart and some of the rest of those type of things, that also impacted how we looked at this, went from local to regional to national market. Today, we live in a global market. And what we are seeing here with this Brexit exit is that what happens abroad profoundly affects what happens here. Profoundly affects what happens here. Because one of the things is, when it comes to 20th century and early 21st century stuff, like the memorabilia stuff, the great mother lode is the U.S. Because British collectors do not collect British Coca-Cola stuff. They collect American Coca-Cola stuff. And they collect American TV cowboy stuff, you know, and all the rest of that type of thing. So yeah. all of a sudden, if the pound goes weak against the dollar, they're not going to come into the markets and buy over here. It's going to be a period of great adjustment, but it's also a reminder that we have to think both regionally, nationally, and globally today when we're looking at trying to evaluate the value of any object in this trade. I suppose the logical question is, where's the market? Where's the market best for it? What I'm more interested in is, what is the darn disparity going to be between the UK and Europe? I mean, you know, with the common boundaries and so forth, even though England maintained the pound, you know, the antique market was pretty stable all over Europe. And I'm not sure there's not going to be some instability in prices over there, too. Now, I think I'm just saying that so I have an excuse to get on an airplane and go flying overseas. No, I have to check it out. Come on. But it's been fascinating to me. I don't know what the shakeout's going to be, but I do think today, whenever there's instability in the financial market, people stay out of the antique market for a while because they just aren't sure how much discretionary income or cash they're going to have. The fact that the market is so trendy means that a lot of people don't view our market anymore as an investment grade market. I mean, you could buy, if you bought early American furniture 35 years ago, you considered it an investment. You buy early American furniture today, you're out of your mind because the prices have slipped so badly. And the same, I mean, for every category where you can point to, like my good friends at Heritage Auctions down there in Dallas, they've run Illustrator art up to a point. But what I know is that there is an up level to every run. There is a point when some things become too darn expensive or too priced out. And so I think illustrated art is there. So you get into now as a speculative market, you may have trouble getting out what you put in it. And so there's a nervousness out there. There's a trendiness to the market. Well, add economic instability into that, and wow, you get a real mess, actually. So, you know, maybe we can encourage some of our viewers to share their thoughts. What do they think Brexit's done or is going to do to the antiques and collectibles marketplace? Well, here's the deal. We have a way you can tell us. Right? Send us an email to community. Community. We will get the thing up here in a second. There it is, community@worthpoint.com. That's where you can also send in questions about that. But here you go, community@worthpoint.com. Send us your thoughts. We'd love to talk about them here on the air. That's something we're very good at. And again, if you have a question about an object, you could certainly do that as well. So there we go. Well, speaking of objects, got an interesting object in the mail just the other day. One of my listeners to What You Got, my radio show, which is on Sunday mornings from 8 to 10 Eastern. You can hear it streaming live at www.gcnlive.com. This comes from one of my listeners at WYUP up in Mackinac City, Michigan. Says, I have a Vernor's green tint bottle, raised letters, no lettering on the bottom, would have a crown cork when made, 9 1/4 inches tall, back has guaranteed under the Food and Drug Act of June 30th, 1906, number 1246, so we know it's not before then. Front has Vernor's ginger ale, genuine only, Detroit, Michigan, with a Vernor's design in the middle. I found this in the 80s at an old lumber town in Upper Michigan. Well, you know, interestingly enough, bottle collecting has a very strong history. Bottle collecting is one of those things that's cheap. You can dig up old dumps, you can dig up old privies, you can find you can dive for bottles. We'll talk about that in a second. But here's one that's out there. Now, first of all, the fun thing about these is they're often found locally, and they are also fun because it's a lot of fun to research them. Now, what happened is that we did a bunch of things. First of all, Greg, you went to WorthPoint and you found a number of these bottles up there, right?
That's right. We had.
Now, why don't you? Now, here's the results. But why don't you tell people what you did and how you did this?
Okay, so the basic search for the Vernor's bottle, I just put embossed Vernor's ginger ale bottle, and that came up with 26 hits.
Right, but But wait a minute. That first thing on the list doesn't look like a bottle to me.
No, it's the Vernor's advertising sign.
Yes, I don't know how Seal Test Ice Cream got in there, but keep scrolling down.
Keep coming down. All right. What do you see, and what do you want to stop at?
Well, we got one on the right side there. It says it looks pretty much like the one that we have. Or no, the one on the left. There, right there. The one on the left looks pretty much exactly like the one we have. What do you have on that one?
James Vernor's Druggist Ginger Ale Extract from Detroit. So that's an early version of this bottle.
Right. Yep.
Sold for 165.
That's a lot of money. That's way. And
so,
now wait a minute. No. This is important to talk about, Greg, because when you're doing research for anything, you better have an apples to apples situation here, okay? As opposed to oranges, apples, and grapes. And this may be one of the earliest known bottles, and that's sold. And so there. Now here's a more realistic one, right?
This one looks like it's a better match. This is a 1906 Vernor's ginger ale bottle. It has the same embossing.
And it brought $30, which by the way, is a very strong price, because in my research work up on the net, I found they were going for $6 to $8. So a lot depends who's on the marketplace, what day of the week it is, what variation if it is. But the problem is that when you're doing a search, either you get an identical one or a comparable, but you have to be careful with comparables. It has to be very close, roughly from the same time period, whatever. Now, did you know that Vernor's is still in business?
I did not.
Vernor's ginger ale is still around. Now, this is an interesting thing, too. Now, I always tell people that the fun of anything like this is to have the story come alive. So, of course, isn't there a Vernor's site on Wikipedia? And there's also Vernor's stuff on Worthopedia, obviously. But here it is. Supposedly, the story goes that a guy from Detroit, James Vernor, experimented with flavors to try to duplicate ginger ale imported from Dublin, Ireland. Finally, he stored up a syrup base with 19 ingredients, including ginger, vanilla, and so forth, and supposedly at the time of the Civil War. Well, the company finally admitted that it really didn't quite happen at the time of the Civil War, but it certainly happened shortly thereafter in the Civil War. Now, the company remained in the family for until 1966, almost 100 years, actually, and today it's a division of Dr. Pepper Snapple Group of Plano, Texas. But here's the thing. The reason I wanted to stress this thing, too, besides talking about the value of the bottles, there's a couple other things we can learn from it, too. First of all, you just, I think, did an article, is it a newsletter or somewhere, on a guy that does scuba diving and found a Ted's root beer bottle.
Yes. Bram Hepburn, who's one of our worthologists, an expert in bottles, spends his off hours digging in privies and old dumps. And he also scuba dives in rivers up where he lives in Maine. And he dug out this Ted's root beer bottle.
Now, wait a minute. Now, let's have our listeners guess. Okay, he found it in Maine, right?
Right.
Called Ted's root beer.
Right.
Now, if you're under 30, you think that it must be a teddy bear from a movie. Right?
Yeah, I guess that's true, right?
I'm wrong with that one, right?
I do, and that bear does have a Boston accent.
Yes, he does. So he had his own root beer, but no, he didn't. So we'll tell you in a second, but see if you can guess for our people watching the video what Ted are they referring to here? And we know the answer to that. Of course, it's Ted Williams.
It's Ted Williams. That's right.
Ted Williams root beer, very popular regional root beer at the time. You know, this is also something interesting too. When you do soda pop collectibles, back when you were rating who's, you know, I'm always trying to tell people to think, you know, when they're evaluating antiques and collectibles, who is king of the hill, right?
Yeah.
Well, in soda pop collecting, there is, and there only has been one king of the hill. I'm sorry to unfortunately distort all the other soda bottle fans, but it's Coca-Cola, okay? And then comes Pepsi, right?
Right.
And then came Hires, or the root beers. But Hires was the one that carried that third status, and then root beers. Interestingly enough, there wasn't a lot of people who collected what we call clear soda, like 7-Up and ginger ale and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, there's just really great advertising to it. So let's go back to your Worthopedia. Sometimes when you find an interesting collectible, the fun thing to do when you want to display it is add some secondary material to it. And the Worthopedia serves as an important kind of fun list because it's like a checklist. What else is out there, right? So
yes.
You can see that there's some signs, there's coolers, you know, maybe not dating back to the late 19th, early 20th century, but there has to be late 19th and 20th century advertising out there somewhere. Look at that one. Isn't that neat? I mean, I think that's a super great sign, don't you think?
Yes, that is. There's two versions at this.
Oh, right, with that guy on the barrel there, right?
Right, and then there's the horizontal version of him behind the barrel.
Right, but that sold for some pretty strong money out there.
Almost $300.
Yep, exactly. And so, you know, if you're out there and you find something like that, and you say, well, I'd like to add another example. Now, you could, of course, build a collection of Vernor bottles over the years too. I think I saw on the Worthopedia there were some samples of different styles of bottles too. There was a later one that had that label on it, I think, of the guy on the beer barrel or whatever.
Yeah.
And so now these items on the Worthopedia though have all been sold, right?
Yes.
But the point of the matter is now leave what you have up there for me, okay? Mm-hmm. What you can do, however, is you say, oh, I really like that one. Well, look what you got. You got all the buzzwords you need to research it up in that top line, right?
Right.
So those are the buzzwords you can use, and then you can go up on the net and run all the different sales sites. You don't necessarily have to limit it to eBay. And boom, you can add some really neat stuff to your collection if you want. Right?
That's right, yeah.
And so the Worthopedia, while it's a great way to check prices, it's also, as they add more and more objects to this, a great way to find out what the heck is out there. You know, what are some of the different things out there? And also, of course, when you're using the Worthopedia, always pay close attention to the sale date. When did the sale close?
This one sold in 2010.
Yeah, and the markets had some variations in that way. So you want to be a little cautious of saying, well, my gosh, if I see one, I'm willing to pay that for it. You know, pay what you want to pay, and be patient and do comparison shop. These are not one-of-a-kind items. Well, anyway, enough of that. Speaking of fun things that happened, not that we were not speaking of fun things that were happening, I had to do a walkthrough appraisal a couple weeks ago up in Scioto, Pennsylvania. And, you know, when you do a walkthrough appraisal, you hope you're going to find at least enough stuff to justify what the people are paying you. And this was a person just had a house full of junk, well, things. We should call it junk. We should be polite. But she was looking if there was any hidden value in there. And I found this, you know, plastic like Ziploc bag filled with old bottle caps. And I said to the woman, I said, well, this may pretty well justify you bringing me up here. I said, I think you may have $100 to a couple $100 worth of bottle caps in there. And what they were some Tab soda bottle caps. Now, you got an example, right?
Yes,
of a cap here. These were done in 1964, 65, and the cap has a football on it. You see that right there?
Yes.
Well, this is the glorious days when sometimes people would save these caps for a whole variety of reasons, but just like with sports cars and everything else, they put information on the back, and Tab, along with Coca-Cola and along with Fresca, did a series of NFL Stars bottle caps. All right? Now, the interesting thing about the hoard that I found was that besides the NFL Stars series, there was an Eagles series. She had 30 some caps that had pictures of eagles on it. Now there were a couple of duplicates of there, and so I got really curious about this whole business and started to research this thing. And again, I mentioned it on my radio show. You know what you got?
Right.
And didn't I get a call from a guy who said, "Hey, I remember those as a kid. I collected them. You got sheets that you filled out and put the caps on the sheets." And when you got 6 sheets of filled out, right, you sent the sheets with the bottle caps attached to them and got an NFL Coca-Cola football.
Wow.
Yes. Who would know that? I didn't know that. I couldn't find it anywhere on the net. But then I emailed the guy back. And I said, "Hey," I said, "do you still have the football?" He says, "Well, it's in a little rough shape, but yes, he did." And I'm thinking, boy, what a neat collectible that would be, right?
Right.
How many kids say these? I would have rather found the sheet that you could put the caps on. But anyway, again, using the Worthopedia, we found out a lot of information about them here too, right? You have a number of prices here, including, did you say that somebody said they had a complete series of them?
Yes, there are several listings here of the first one here says collection of 235 caps for Green Bay Packers. So let's look at that closely. That's over $180.
Here's what I think happened. I think what happened was that, boy, talk about promotional stuff. They must have done a different series of caps for each professional team. And by the way, this was before Super Bowl. This was the right before that. So I know the Eagle series, but now you've just proven my point. Here's that, and the 25. What do they have there? 236 caps sold for how much?
$179.99.
Hey, but that's cheap. That's less than 50 cents a cap, and that's way below their value. See, this is one of those things where he flooded the market. He might have been smarter breaking them up, I think, if they were trying to sell them. What else did you find in some of the listings?
They did baseball as well.
Yes, they did. They did
baseball stars.
But you going through the football ones, didn't you find that? Did you tell me Fran Tarkington was the most expensive you found?
Right. Of all the individual caps, just one-offs, the Fran Tarkington 1966 sold for $20.
Yeah, and in my researching out the Eagle caps, they were listing anywhere from $2.50 to $6. So the person had 60 of them, so if she could get $2 a piece for them, she's in seventh heaven. Now, some of them have a heavy indent from the church key that opened the bottle, but I just told her to take her thumb and flatten them.
Yeah.
But here it is. If we didn't have this information on Worthopedia, and I didn't have the ability to get people to call in and tell us, so much of this information is lost today. This is what makes collectors really so valuable to our game. Seriously. This information rests with these people in their heads, and they share it with us when they have an opportunity. I'm gonna in my Rinker and Collectibles column, I'm gonna do a Q&A on this at the end of one of the columns, end of July or early August, because I really want to get that other information out, just because it was so much fun. Now but you didn't find anywhere on your thing. You didn't find anything on there that had the sheet where you attached the caps, did you? Bottle caps, did you?
I did not know of the sheet.
Oh, you didn't know that, right? I didn't either, as I said.
Here it is.
Where is it?
Let's see. Well, let's get it to come up here. My computer's slow.
All right. That's all right. But you have an example of one?
It looks like this is the Coke version.
Okay, but that's all right.
But let's can't get it to open here. Hang on.
All right, no, that's all right.
All right, so that looks
like, but that's the New York Giants one. Wow. All right, so I'm right about the way it worked. I'm right about the whole business. My gosh. And apparently you didn't have to match the caps of the player. You just had to drink enough soda. But my heavens, if you had to turn 6 of those things in, how many bottle caps do you have there in each row? 1, 2, 3,
Well,
4, 5. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 35.
35, yeah, that's a case and a half.
You had to drink 180 bottles to turn them all in. Holy mackerel.
Rot your teeth to get a football.
Yeah, well, hey, what's there? By the way, FYI, in among the collection that I found were some Schaefer beer bottles. Now, Schaefer was a local Philadelphia beer, and they had, in the beer caps, they had horse race winners, the Belmont and the Kentucky Derby and what have you. She had a couple of those too. And I also found out that there were also a series of team logo caps from the NFL too. So look at that. You could take one single cap and you can, if you get nutty enough about it, you can build a heck of a collection. And you know, if you're looking at $2 to $5 a cap, maybe you have to pay a little bit more for some of the rare ones. You can really, you know, spend it. Now here we have, what is this here? The Giants one was only $45, right?
Right, that was in 2011. So
that was in 2011, but yeah, but that's less than, that's about 50 cents a cap too. Wow, I may have to start collecting these, Greg.
Well, since you have a little bit of room now,
I've started Stranger Collections for less. All right, no.
Okay.
All right, there we go.
You got me on that.
All that, but see how when you're doing research work, Worthopedia is so much more than just a price guide in there, and you benefit. Now you have to be careful with some of the information these people provide, but still in all, it's there. Well, anyway, we have another object. Somebody sent me in a picture of some Johnson & Johnson's baby powder giveaways, and this is one of those cases where you take one look at these, and I'll tell you what, one of the things I make a point of in the antiques and collectibles trade is to tell people that this trade is sexist, right?
Right.
These are not guy photos. These are chick collectibles. And there is a series of this, and this person had a bunch of courtesy of Johnson Baby products, and these came from a 1965, 64 to 67 advertising campaign called Schaefguard. I guess prevent the diaper chafing with this thing. And the guy has a whole bunch of these in an envelope that mother must have gotten. They sent in to Johnson & Johnson for. He wants to know what they're worth. Well, they're worth about, and somehow in an odd way, which I still don't understand. This was in there too, but yet when I researched this stuff, I picked it up as well as a Johnson & Johnson thing, which seems like an extremely strange one to throw in with the two baby pictures. But anyway, what are they worth? 50 cents to $1 a piece at most. This is one of those times where if you want to sell something like this, you do what we call value enhancement stuff, where you simply go out and buy a cheap frame at Kmart, put it inside, maybe even mat it up with a cheap paper mat, and charge $10 and sell it for its nostalgia value. So you got a couple of bucks invested in the thing, and you make a ×5 profit on the whole business. But they're fun, and they're very generic, and they're certainly say 60s to me in terms of the photographic style and all the rest of it. It's if somebody's doing a 60s room, but baby stuff also, you know, we also have another word for these kind of things in the trade, granny stuff. These are the kind of things that grandma goes into an antique mall, sees it, oh, that would look so cute in the grandkids' bedroom, and then they buy it and give it to the mother, and the mother puts it in the closet, but we won't go there.
No, we won't. How large were these images?
They're about 8 by 10, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, and that's, by the way, thank you for asking that, because the person that sent this question into us failed to mention the dimensions. So I'm assuming they are that size, but you may or may not remember that I once had one of the world's largest collections of toilet paper. I do not have it anymore. It got sold with my stuff from Pennsylvania, but the toilet paper companies, Great Northern Toilet Tissue, also put out papers like this too. And so as a result of all of this, why I know something about them, and they were about 8 by 10, maybe a little bit less, but still in all what they were. Okay, well, we're nearing the end of this week's What You Got, and so, or not What You Got, WorthPoint Chats with Harry Rinker. I got to remember what the heck show I'm doing here.
Where are you, Harry?
Well, where am I? I don't know. I'm going crazy. Actually, my mind is 2 days away when I go to Canada, but let's throw a few things out here. The Institute for the Study of Antiques Collectibles starts July 11th. We still have room in the 3 seminars. A great one on how to research antiques and collectibles and evaluate the sources. I just finished the 20-plus page outline for that course, and I'm very excited about that one. We got one on paintings, prints, and watercolors on the 13th to the 14th, and finally the 15th and 16th, my favorite, toys, games, and puzzles. Now, you know, one of the things that you have to understand about the Institute object courses is that they still are there to teach theory. So the Toys, Games, and Puzzles course is very important because the toy, games, and puzzles industry, particularly toy collectors, set the industry standards for condition and everything else. And so we're going to spend a lot of time in there understanding how the toy collectors impact the entire antiques and collectibles marketplace. You can find out information on my website, harryrinker.com. Click on the Institute logo, and boom, we're in business. Remind everybody, next week, it's going to be Thursday, July 7th.
July 7th.
Yeah, Thursday, July the 7th at 2 p.m. instead of on Tuesday. I am going to be in Canada the first part of the week, celebrating a dual holiday. 2nd of July in Canada is Canada Day, right?
I believe that's true. I don't have it on my calendar.
No, I'm telling you it's true.
Okay.
And then the 4th of July will be up there too. I don't know what the Canadians are going to feel about celebrating the 4th in Canada, but I may sneak over to the United States across from Montreal so I can see a little bit of whoop, whoop, whoop for the dear old USA or whatever. But anyway, we'll be back next week on Thursday,
July 7th at 2 p.m. That's right.
Hey, thanks an awful lot, buddy.
Well, thank you, Harry, and we'll talk to you next week.
You will.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.